Throughout the president's 3 years in office, Vice President Mike Pence has been unwavering in carrying out the vision of the Trump agenda. Earlier today, I had the opportunity to sit down with the vice president in this exclusive interview in his West Wing office, where we discussed today's historic trade agreement with China. Mr. Vice President, congratulations to you, the president, to the administration. A historic day, the trade agreement between the United States and China, absolutely against all odds, achieving it over the course of 2 years of negotiations. Your thoughts, your emotions as you participated in the signing ceremony?
Well, thank you, Lou, and welcome to the White House.
Thank you.
It's great to see you, and I think this is, as the president said, a momentous day, because it is the beginning of a new economic relationship with China. Over the last 20 years, since we admitted China to the World Trade Organization, literally one administration after another, Republican and Democrat, allowed China to essentially have open access to our economy while restricting access to theirs. And by the time we arrived in office, President Trump made it clear that the era of economic surrender was over. Half of our international trade deficit was with China. We'd literally seen manufacturing hollowed out across this country. And President Trump stepped forward and took decisive action to use access to this economy, tariffs on this economy, to demand that China come to the table. And the Phase One deal that the president signed today represents a beginning to resolving the issues that we've had with China now for 2 decades. But it would only have been possible because of the strong stand that President Trump has taken, and frankly, that he continues to take. It's important to note that while there's some tariff relief for China in this deal, we're still imposing tariffs on more than $250 billion in goods. And we've already begun discussions on a Phase 2 deal. And as I said today, the American people can be confident that President Trump, with this Phase 1 deal in hand, is going to continue to stand firm for American jobs and American workers as we continue negotiations for the kind of relationship with China in the long term that will be free and fair and reciprocal trade.
And the president, with the vice premier of China, some 10 feet from him, talking about America first, the president making it very clear that the interests of this country will be preserved and protected and asserted throughout. And I also, as the president talked about his relationship with President Xi, their friendship, and it's obviously a warm and defined relationship between the two leaders that helped move toward this moment. I watched the vice premier today, and as I watched him, I had, without any question, the sense that he was authentic and sincere as he joined with the president in signing the agreement. Your thoughts?
Well, we think so too. As Ambassador Lighthizer said today, throughout these negotiations, which have had stops and starts along the way, we believe the Chinese have dealt with us in an honorable way. But make no mistake about it, it's been the leadership that President Trump has brought to this, beginning with that relationship with President Xi. I mean, in this president, the American people have a leader that understands when you're dealing with the wider world, it starts with establishing a relationship. And then you can move on to solve the long-term issues that exist between our countries. President Trump and President Xi, as that letter that was read today reflected, have a good personal relationship. It doesn't change the fact that President Trump is president of the United States, President Xi is the leader of China, and they both are going to advance the interests of their countries. But it's that candor, it's that relationship that made this Phase One deal possible. And but I want your viewers to know that we're going to continue to drive forward. There's steps here. Big win for agriculture. The Vice Premier said today it may be more than $50 billion in agriculture.
Were you surprised when he made that?
Well, we welcomed it. We welcomed it. But the truth is, as the Vice Premier also said, that they would be opening markets even more than are contemplated in this deal. It's $200 billion in U.S. exports to China over the next 2 years. That's going to support American jobs and American workers and American growth in an economy that's already booming. Low. I mean, 7.1 million jobs, unemployment at a 50-year low. And as we said today, it's all been a result of the fact that President Trump has delivered on less taxes, less regulation, unleashing American energy, but also fighting for free and fair and reciprocal trade. Even before the end of this week, we'll see the United States Senate approve the largest trade deal in American history. The USMCA will be headed to the president's desk. And it's the combination of all of those things that's putting Americans back to work, has brought more than 3.5 million people off the sidelines back into the workforce. Wages are rising most rapidly for blue-collar working Americans. The forgotten men and women are forgotten no more. And it's all a result of President Donald Trump doing exactly what he said he would do in 2016.
Yeah, there should be no surprise, no matter how momentous, how historic the achievement, that the president backs up what he has said. He told everyone, every American, what he was going to do, and he talked about prosperity for everyone, and he talked about very clearly and emphatically that America would be first in our policy interest. It's extraordinary what your administration has done. I believe that this president is historic in every sense of the word. And at the same time, in this moment of making history, across the way, the House of Representatives, the Democrats, were passing a resolution to move 2 articles of impeachment against this president. Your thoughts as we sit here today?
Well, after a sham investigation and a partisan impeachment that we were told was urgent, that there were large national issues at hand, needed to be dealt with quickly, Nancy Pelosi sat on her articles of impeachment for a month, and today they cast a vote to forward those articles to the United States Senate. And what the Democrats are doing in Congress is a disgrace and a great disservice to the American people. And look, the House Democrats have had their say. Republicans in the Senate will soon have their say. But Lou, I have to tell you, and I heard it again last night in Wisconsin, I think the American people are going to have their say come this November, not only when they re-elect President Donald Trump for 4 more years, but when they vote to re-elect a Republican Senate and elect a Republican House of Representatives, because I think the American people see this partisan impeachment for what it is. They see these baseless allegations. They can read the transcript. They know the facts of this case. And so they see the politics driving all of this. And I think the American people are going to say enough is enough.
And the president not engaging in hyperbole. The landmark trade deal promises much for American working men and women, our middle class, and all who aspire to it. We pick up now my conversation with the Vice President, Mike Pence, talking about the many other achievements of the Trump administration working for the American people.
The American people are proud of the leadership this president has provided, how he's kept the promises that he made to the people of this country. I mean, it's not only the economy that's growing and booming. This is really a blue-collar boom across the country.
Right.
But since the first of this year, the American people saw President Trump take that military that we've rebuilt over the last 3 years and make America safer and make the world safer. I mean, it's remarkable to think that while the Democrats have been spending all their time on a partisan impeachment and the sham investigation, we've been rebuilding our military. We've been standing strong with our allies. We've been standing up to our enemies. We've taken the fight to radical Islamic terrorists on our terms, on their soil. Shortly, more than a year ago, we defeated the last inch of territory controlled by ISIS. Their leader, al-Baghdadi, was taken out in September of this last year. Right. And then I watched at the very turn of this year when mortars struck an American base and claimed one American life. President Trump ordered airstrikes, the first time in 10 years within Iraq, on 5 bases controlled by Iranian-backed militia. In the wake of that, we saw protesters storm the American embassy. Again, President Trump sent in the Marines and said no more Benghazis. And then when we received actionable intelligence that a man responsible for killing and wounding thousands of American soldiers, the leading terrorist in the world, the head of the Iranian Guard, Qasem Soleimani, was in our sights. President Trump made the decision, and Qasem Soleimani is gone. And because of the professionalism of our soldiers on the ground, despite a missile attack by Iran, no American casualties, and Iran is standing down. Contrast that with 3 years of relentless investigations, obstruction, resistance, culminating in their partisan impeachment. And it's what tells me that in this election year 2020, we're not only going to re-elect President Trump for 4 more years in the White House, but the American people are going to say enough is enough to these Democrats in Congress. They're going to re-elect a Republican Senate and put a Republican majority back in the House of Representatives.
And they're giving you even more, if you will, impetus toward that success at the polls this year. When they defend Soleimani, they defend the world's deadliest terrorist. They defend the Iranian state, which is the largest state sponsor of terrorism in the globe. How in the world their leadership has moved so far from the American people and the national interest? Your thoughts?
Lou, you know, I served in the Congress for 12 years, and I don't recognize the Democratic Party in Congress today. You know, the Green Revolution in 2009 happened. And I actually worked with a prominent Democrat in Congress named Howard Berman. We authored a resolution to support the Iranian people's efforts to demand democracy in their country. It passed almost unanimously in the House and the Senate. But today, partisanship is the order of the day for Democrats. I mean, it used to be that partisanship ended at the water's edge. But here to have Democrats being critical of, I mean, you had Bernie Sanders referred to the president's decision to take out the leading terrorist for the last 20 years in the world as an assassination of a government official. Well, you know, Qasem Soleimani was not a government official. He was a terrorist and recognized as such around the world. And it was a justifiable target. The president took action, and America and the world are safer as a result. But to have Democrats criticizing that, which, despite the fact, is there every right in this country? It's a free country. Yeah. I think is. I think it's deeply offensive to millions of Americans, and if I may say so, particularly to the families of 603 American service members who lost their life between 2005 and 2011 in the Iraq War. And we can trace those attacks directly to Qasem Soleimani and to his Iranian Revolutionary Guard's support of the insurgency in Iraq. Those families are on our hearts. I know they were on the president's heart when he made that decision without hesitation. And let me be clear, Qasem Soleimani has been a threat to the United States and to our allies in the region for 20 years since he's been in charge of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. But make no mistake about it, the intelligence that was gathered in real time in the wake of the assault on our embassy in Baghdad conveyed to the president that Soleimani was traveling the region to plan additional attacks. It's unquestionable. It is the conclusion of our intelligence community And for some to be giving the benefit of the doubt to Qasem Soleimani and not to our intelligence community and not to our military leadership that's seen all of the evidence.
And our commander-in-chief.
And our commander-in-chief. I think it tells you all you need to know about how much partisanship has totally overtaken the Democrats in Washington, D.C. these days. And I think the American people have had enough.
President Trump straightforward about his leverage in these negotiations, and they're called tariffs. Turning now to Vice President Pence, we pick up our conversation on how the president is commanding the respect of America around the world.
The American people can be proud of the fact that we have a president who embraces his role as leader of the free world. And I'll be back traveling internationally next week. I'll be at an event in Israel with some 40 heads of state representing the president. And I can tell you, in all of my travels, it's clear to me that world leaders know that President Trump is an American leader who says what he means and means what he says. I mean, Barack Obama drew a red line in the sand with Syria. Syria crossed it and used chemical weapons, and he did nothing.
Right.
President Trump, when the same thing happened, he sent cruise missiles into Syria. I mean, the action against Qasem Soleimani, the airstrikes on 5 bases that had claimed 1 American life in December of this year, Iranian-backed militia within Iraq. The world knows President Trump means it. The Phase One deal today. Phase One deal today. It would not have been possible if this president hadn't followed through on his commitment to use access to our economy and tariffs to demand that China come to the table and address not only the trade imbalance, but the long-term structural issues that we are beginning to deal with now. Forced technology transfer, intellectual property theft, a whole range of issues, currency manipulation. The Phase One deal today begins the process of resetting our trade imbalance, but also dealing with those issues that have really cost jobs and taken away assets of the American people. None of that would have been possible if President Trump had not been the kind of leader he is that says, here's what I'm going to do, and then does it. And I think the progress we've made today, the respect we command in the world today, is all derivative of the fact that President Donald Trump is precisely that kind of leader. But to your point, let me say, I think your point about the environment he's done all that in is well taken, because all the progress we've made, rebuilding our military, over 180 conservatives appointed to our courts, 2 Supreme Court justices, revive the American economy through less taxes, less regulation, more American energy, free and fair trade, 7 million jobs created. All of that has been done against what, in my lifetime, is unprecedented partisan opposition in Washington, D.C. I mean, and it's all been
unprecedented.
Designed. Literally, it's been. And I think this is where the American people see what's going on, Lou, is that literally since the day we were inaugurated, there was talk among the Democrats and the radical left for how they could impeach this president, how they could overturn the results of the 2016 election. And I think the American people see through the Mueller investigation, and that ultimately resulted in no collusion, no obstruction, case closed. And now, although they can read the transcript, see there was no quid pro quo, the president did nothing wrong, the aid was released, Democrats are continuing to drive forward on essentially their effort to overturn the results of the 2016 election. But I really believe the American people see through it. Everywhere I go across the country, people tell me every day, tell the president to just keep fighting. We're with you. And I know the American people are going to be with us all through this year as we continue to make America safer and more prosperous. And they're going to be with us come Election Day 2020.
By then, perhaps, Mr. Vice President, the Democrats themselves will be will allow themselves to say thank you to you and President Trump for your extraordinary success, unprecedented success.
Thank you, Lou. Great to have you here.
Thank you, sir.